All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Athletes for Hope podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mena Mirhom, the Chief Wellbeing Officer of Athletes for Hope. And I'm so excited for this particular episode to have someone on who is a friend, I would say, a big brother, and someone I just look up to in a lot of ways, not just in ball, but also in life, just in character. I'm so excited to be able to welcome not just NBA champion, not just NCAA champion, not just high school champion, but life champion, Derek Anderson. Welcome, Derek. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you, man. So in this pod, we talk about the conversation between athletics, mental health, well being. That whole journey. So being as someone who has been winning on many levels. Maybe let's start with the league part. Can you walk us through your journey into basketball, into the league, what it was like for you to get into basketball, and
Right.
just kind of a little bit about that?
Basketball has always been an outlet for a lot of people.
Mm,
A lot of us did it as a fun tool, playing in pickup games growing up. Just kind of wanted the outlet from reality of
mm,
life, knowing the stresses that it caused. So when you were in the NBA, you were kind of like away from the reality of the real world.
mm,
We would travel, private jets, do
mm,
certain things, eat, and you had money. But you never wanted to lose a sense of who you were as a person.
mm,
And I think basketball always kind of brought you back to reality with that. When you lose
mm,
games you shouldn't have lost, you see other guys just as good as you or better. So it was always kind of you put them together always with life and basketball, but you always kept focused with that. So it was
mm.
a good groundbreaking thing for me personally because I knew where I would come from and knew where I was trying to go.
I love that, man. And I know we'll talk definitely more about where you were coming from and where you were going. And as you were sort of in that journey, I know some background for folks who may not know, you were like a top prospect out of college. We were talking yesterday about how you had your billboard up, at Ohio
Yeah, yeah,
State when
yeah,
you were
yeah,
playing for
yeah.
Kentucky. What was it like first on the college level for you as
hmm
like a star player and, winning a chip? And what was the college experience like of being a collegiate athlete?
Well, college for me was fun because I got to be a kid.
Mm,
So when you see those type of things, you're like, man, this is fun.
mm,
You don't have the pressures of bills, taxes, all those other
yeah.
things. So I had a great time at college, man. It was just you finding who you are as a person.
Mm,
You young, everyone around you is about the same age, so you guys are figuring it out.
mm,
It's like having a big family. So when I was on college campus, it was just about enjoying your time, no stress, and
mm,
enjoying the moment.
mm.
I was always taught to live in the precious present.
Precious present.
Precious present, just in that wherever moment you're in at that point, enjoy it.
Mm.
So I just chose to enjoy college. The best time of my life was college. Like
Wow.
I love the NBA, but college was the best time of my life. I tell everybody, I said, if you go to college and enjoy it,
Mm.
that will be the best memories you have.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you enjoyed that even more than the NBA.
Oh,
Was it because it
absolutely.
was less pressure, less
Yeah.
going on?
Less 11 years in the NBA, you deal with politics,
Right.
people, greed,
Mm.
ups and downs. When college, it was just like you go to class, you pass, you have fun.
Right. Right.
Basketball was what it was, but, I think the life outside of basketball
Mm.
was me still going to class, people saying, "Hey, Derek," and moving on. The
Mm.
NBA is like lost. People try to sue you, people try to take your
Yeah.
money. Like, fortunately, I didn't get those things, but you deal with those things of people trying.
Right.
And in
Right.
college, nobody bothers you.
What about yeah. Or at
I don't
least it was
have
when you were playing.
yeah, the
Yeah.
NIL is different, but
NIL's
yeah,
different.
my NIL was not in luck.
Right. Right.
We didn't have nothing, so
Not in luck, and I like
yeah.
that, man. Because actually, I mean, as we were saying, as you're saying now, and we were talking about this yesterday too, of just like when you're mentoring young players, whether it's somebody like in college or coming out, NIL changed a lot for college kids, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
don't get to be a kid the same way.
Nah.
When you're a pro, you're a professional, right? You're expected to do a lot. You got to
Mhm.
perform this and that. What's it like now when you're talking to a college player or somebody who's sort of in the earlier part of their career, but they're navigating a whole other world, right? Of people, the greed and the industry
Yeah.
and the politics and all that.
Yeah, well, I think it's a sad situation where kids don't be allowed to be kids.
Mm,
You don't get that time back. We
mm,
can look at childhood stars from entertainment, from actors.
mm,
When you're not able to be a kid and be young and adult,
mm,
it's like you grow up too fast.
right.
You miss those moments. And I think the benefits are you can help your family, help yourself live a better life financially,
Mm,
but you don't get the maturity. You don't get the memories.
mm,
And you can't get those back because now there's a target on you.
mm.
I like I said, I enjoy it. If you ask most people in college, they'd be like, man, I had a great time in college,
Nice.
especially athletes. I mean, for the food and funds weren't as plentiful, but you still had a good time.
Mm,
The whole team wore jogging suits. Nobody was in Louis shoes and none of that.
Everyone was just chilling, right?
Yeah, so it was like I think they missed those moments, and in this generation, man, a lot of these kids are growing up.
Mm,
Even the AAU kids now,
mm.
they keep going down to NIL. Now you can get paid in high school. So how do you
Wow.
tell a kid who's 16 years old make more than you to listen?
Wow.
And I think that's a serious issue that we're having. But it's you weigh the good and the bad, but it's gonna have to come down to
Mhm.
adults.
Right.
Adults have to still be adults. The
Mhm.
leaders have to still be leaders. And we're allowing children and young people whose minds are not developed as much.
Mm,
Some are, but
mm,
some are not as developed with the funds and the money
mm.
and know how to behave. And I think we're missing that point where we're not allowing children and young adults to be that way.
That's such a good point, and especially if someone is not in a place where they're ready to take that on, but it's
Yeah.
what an opportunity. I'm 16 and I get to make all this money.
Yeah.
But then now you as a mentor or as a big brother, like you were talking about being at the NBA's rookie transition program
Right.
and speaking to folks who are coming in
Yeah.
and how some folks maybe are more likely to listen and some folks wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that
Yeah.
of how you were able to get through to some of these guys who may not really think, like I'm coming in, I've already been getting paid since I was 14,
Yeah.
but you got through to them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, I tell them a lot about the stuff that I've dealt with
Mm,
and the stuff that they'll deal with.
mm,
There's people out here right now who's living to hurt people.
mm,
Sad to say, but there's people out here are not happy with your success that you have.
mm,
So they'll look at any means to take you down, and for that is a lot of guys be like, "Well, why me?"
mm.
We've had players like that just literally be good people, and all of a sudden someone just make a story up to get money.
Wow.
And it's really sad that the system allows it, and now the young people don't know how to handle it. So I give them realities of what's about to happen. So when you go to a club, there's undercover cops, there are people watching you. So if you're drinking and you wonder why they're pulling you over, it's because people watching you.
Wow.
Where you can't even go be yourself. Now, if you're a regular guy,
Mhm.
we just
Just
me and
regular
you,
me. Yeah, ain't nobody watching me.
yeah. But if we just regular guys, you had a 9 to 5, good
Mm,
person,
mm.
we go to the club and drink. Someone was drinking, they won't bother.
Right, right.
But if you're an athlete, the target's on you. And
Mm,
that could come from any point of police, jealous people, street people. Like there's all kind of variety of people after you now.
mm,
So you're not able to actually live the best life. So when I give them that reality,
mm.
their lights turn on. They're like, oh, I get it. I am one of these people now. First you weren't. You're just a basketball player.
Right,
Now
right.
you're a target. And that's what I mean about not letting these young people be a young adult and have fun.
Mm,
You're always a target. Like imagine being a target at 16 the rest of your life.
man.
It's stressful.
Very.
The
Yeah.
entertainment world does that a lot, but as athletes and your business is on social media, your
Right.
business, you could pull up my contract on USA Today when I was playing. I'm just like, why would y'all put that out there? Like,
It's just
you know what I
all
mean?
on
It's
it's
all
just
online.
a
So
lot.
it's difficult, but yet when I get their attention, I
Mhm.
give them realities. I give them role playing and life playing, and they be like, I didn't think it that way.
Mm,
A woman who's saying, hey, I just want to meet you, and all of a sudden she's know everything about you. There's a reason she knows everything about you.
mm.
And they don't think that. They think, oh, she loves me because I'm me.
Right. It's my
Dude,
charm,
it's
I
my
just got
yeah,
that smile.
yeah, yeah. You're not attractive, dude. But all of a sudden, you're like really handsome with money. Yeah, so it's like,
Hey, man, Jay-Z said no such thing as an ugly billionaire.
yeah,
You know?
to women.
But
Yeah.
that's such a good point because sometimes, with the positive end of that, like the
Mhm,
brand, we were talking
mhm.
about this morning, we hear a lot about how that gets glorified, right? Like
Yep.
here's your Instagram profile and here's
Mhm.
here's the good thing about having a brand, but with the brand comes a target, to your
Yeah,
point.
huge target, man. I mean, it's unfortunate too
Mm,
because you do these things and you want a better life,
right.
but then you're getting punished for having a better life. It's
Mm.
almost like taxes. Like, why would I?
Right.
If I make more money, you tax me more.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
telling the kids, honestly, if you told a kid, hey man, go have the greatest life you can, you do
Mm,
well, you'll be rewarded, but then you're
mm,
punished on the other side
mm.
because they're gonna take more taxes.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like, well, how do you tell a kid that, hey man, this is part of it. Do
Yeah.
well, but you're gonna
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
punished later. And it's with athletes. How do you
Right.
tell them to do well and then get targeted? It's like an unfair system, but what would you rather have? The target or no target?
Right.
So therein lies issues that we have in the system and how we run things. And unfortunately and fortunately, athletes are always put on a pedestal,
Yes. Yes.
especially the successful ones. So, you take the good with the bad, man. It's just getting their attention to understand that point is what's
Mm.
really difficult because they don't think it'll happen to them. Like you tell
Yes.
your kid,
You're the
don't do
exception.
this, or older people have told us something and didn't happen. You be like, dang.
Uh,
And to that point is just getting their attention to
mm.
understand that it's reality.
I love that. And I'm sure part of the way that you're getting that attention, A, is as you're walking them through these real scenarios that they may
Yeah.
not think of.
Yep.
But B, also, you got this credibility, of you've been through a lot in the
Mhm.
league. We'll talk about more of the things that led up to that.
Right.
But even playing, playing for different coaches, different
Mhm.
teams, going through
Yeah.
playoff journeys, being a champion. Can you talk a little bit through, the experience actually playing in the league in terms of the highs and lows,
Yeah. Yeah.
of being that and how that helps you have that credibility when you're talking to a young player?
Well, for me, it was always listen to learn.
Mm,
You hear people talk, but do you hear them?
mm,
You know what I mean? You could hear people talking all day long. Then do you hear the wah wah wah, or do you
yeah.
hear like, hey, they're telling you something?
Mm,
And I think that was my key was when I was younger. I was like, how do I learn from this stuff?
mm,
So I would, call certain people and ask for help and say, man, what do you think about this?
mm.
Just curious because everybody's answer is
Wow.
not going to be the right answer for you.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? So I don't drink, don't smoke. So some guys are drinking, smoking. I'm like, what happens when I have a bad game?
Mm.
And I couldn't get a good answer. So I was like, well, let me go home and watch Sanford and Son. Maybe I'll cheer up, just
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And I was like, dang, I feel better. I had a
Mm.
terrible game. Like I first got into the league, I got guarded Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, Kobe Bryant. Like I was
Oh my
tired guarding all
god,
those
man. I'm
guys.
tired just hearing that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So you walk into it and it's like, well, man, there's no really night off. It's like, what do you do when you get
Mm.
torched?
Yeah. I'm sure some of those
So,
guys might have, yeah.
yeah. So, but you had to have a mindset of tomorrow's a new day.
Mm,
And a lot of people don't have that outlet.
mm,
They run the social media, they run the drinking, they run the smoking, and it's not a fix.
mm.
It's not a fix at all. Because when you get done, your reality sets back in. For me, it was
Right.
changing my mindset of, okay, this game is over. Study the game, study it, come back, refocus, do it again.
Mm,
It was it was a listen to learn for me. So I listened, I asked questions, I found things out, and I was warming up one game. But get first home game, we was at Cleveland. Sean Kemp was our captain,
mm.
and I'm out there dunking, doing windmills, 360s, and I'm putting on the show. The fans are loving it.
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
"Oh, he's great. He's gonna be a great rookie." And Sean Kemp said, "Hey man, you need to save it." I was like, "Man, I'm good." He said, "We have 82 games." I said, "Man, I'll be good." That game at halftime, when I walked back on the court, my legs were noodles. And
Wow.
he was right. I was like, "Yo, I'm tired as one,"
I mean,
because the
Sean
pace
Kemp knows a
picked
thing or
up.
two about dunking.
It was
That's why.
2 minutes,
Mm,
and I'm guarding guys up and down. Shot
mm.
clock's different in college and the pros. They're
Oh, right.
shooting 16 seconds in the shot clock,
Right.
and then you go down, you gotta run your set. And
Mm.
I'm like, "Man, he was right." I got out there now, I stretched for the first 30 minutes like you had to change.
Yeah.
But the realities of it is, man, you have to listen to learn. A lot
Mm,
of these young guys don't feel like they have to listen anymore. So
mm.
if you listen to learn, you'll find a lot of stuff out quicker
Right.
than you have to go through things to figure them out.
Were there guys that you felt like when you were going to for advice, you felt like, oh, this really resonated, or I really like hearing their perspective? Any particular people that whether it was a teammate or a coach or anything like that?
Yeah, I've always kind of stayed grounded. And I asked older guys, assistant coaches were really good. Sid Lowe
Mm,
was a really good assistant coach. The Cleveland Cavaliers at the time. He was a guy you could kind of lean on, ask
mm,
reality questions. But I would call like Michael Jordan. I signed with Michael Jordan, and I even called him and was like, "Hey, what should I do with this and that?" And he'd be like, "Well, man, look, young fella, when I come in, we'll
mm.
talk." So we have dinner, talk to him. He give me some advice, and I'm like, "Okay, well, he's this." And then he would go out.
Yeah.
We would go dinner, and then he would kind of stay out a little. I'm thinking like, I can't do what he's doing. He's professional. He knows his job. He knows he's
Yeah.
been doing it. He has a routine.
Right.
So even though I listened to him, I couldn't actually do what he did.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So I can listen, but I still don't have to do because you have to know your body. You have to know what
right.
you do. Like I wasn't built like that. Like
Yeah.
I'm never. Yeah,
I mean, none of us are built like him. He
yeah, it's
is.
different. Yeah, but even trying to do some of the things that he
Mm,
did, I wouldn't do. And I think that's the thing about listening to learn.
mm.
You listen, but what are you learning from them?
Yes.
Because a clock is wrong twice a day. A broke
Hey,
clock is wrong twice a day.
that's right.
But it's still that time's gonna happen one day. And I would never forget, just listening to guys and learning, but
Mm.
also implementing what works best for me.
That's such a great point. I think being able to tease those two things out, right?
Yeah.
Like having the humility to seek out advice,
Mm-hmm.
but also having the self-awareness to know what things
Yeah.
apply to you perfectly and
Yeah.
what things are like, you know what, this is just not for me. That works for
Mm-hmm.
that person. And your relationship
That's
with
the hardest part.
that's hard, right?
Yeah, it's the hardest part.
Can we get into for a second? You mentioned your relationship with Michael. I love the story of how you even got
Oh
connected
yeah,
with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Can you share how did you come to have a Jordan shoe deal or a lifetime deal?
Yeah, well, what I did was I was playing at Kentucky, averaging 20, doing what I had to do. I tore my right ACL up.
Mm,
Worked out. I was at the gym every day. I went to class. I did everything I did, and I was always smiling because I'd already
mm,
tore my left ACL up
mm,
2 years before. And I was like, you know what? I can get through this. I can do this. I'm gonna do it even better and do it harder. This and
mm,
that. So I had a good disposition about myself.
mm,
I was
mm,
always on time, never late. Watch teams practice. I'm doing drills, just watching those guys rehabbing while the team is practicing.
Mm,
Coach Pitino was like, "That's good. Keep working out, being around your teammates. This is
mm.
good." So after the season's over, I get invited to Nike, and I didn't call him. I didn't have an agent because I was working with an attorney firm in a group, and they were like, "Okay, well, we can get you here." So I didn't call Nike. No one represented me. He called me. I got a message in my dorm room that
Wow.
Nike wants to call. So I talked to Nike. It was a rep, and they said, "Hey, we'd like to invite you. We'll pay for your flight, this and that." So they flew me out. I walk into a room. Phil Knight walks out and didn't know who he was at the time. This is
Yeah.
'97. And he speaks and I speak and I didn't know him. Then walked in and Michael Jordan's in the office and we sat and talked. He asked how I was doing and I was like, "Oh, I'm doing well." And he's like, "I'd like to be one of the first guys to represent my shoe company." This is
Wow.
when it first opened. Like he hadn't done a commercial, we hadn't done anything. No
Wow.
shoes and I hadn't played in the league. So the other four guys
Before
who
you even played
played
in the
before I
league.
ever stepped a foot, and he's like,
Yo.
"I want you to come and join my team."
Mm.
And I'm like, "What's the name?" He was like, Jumpman. Jordan brand was Jumpman. I'm like,
It's gonna be a
I just
little,
tore
little,
both my
little
ACLs
coming.
up, right? You sure?" And he was like, "Man, I've heard a lot of people speak highly of you. Had people
Mm.
watching you. They said you were on time. You had good character, and you was a great dude."
Wow.
He said, "So I'm not worrying about your basketball career. I'm worried about your character. I want you to represent my brand." And I
Wow.
was like, "Wow, this man hired me because of my character."
It wasn't your windmill.
Wasn't that at
Wasn't that
all.
360?
Nah, because I had two ACLs.
Mm.
You know how many people get drafted lottery and get picked on Jordan Brand with two ACLs? So clearly it was something that people saw in me and spoke highly of
Mm.
me outside of basketball.
Yes.
And it was always my character, just being a good person, good positive attitude, smiling, speaking to people, just simple things that just
Yes.
daily people don't do. And it carried over, man. So when he offered me that, man, it was a humbling thing. But I was never had to worry about changing who I was
Mm.
because I was content on being Derek Anderson. I wasn't
Yeah.
trying to be somebody else. I didn't need to be like seen every day. Like
Right. Right.
I was loving the game of basketball and enjoying who I was. So
You're just being you.
being me, man.
Well, let's get into the formation of you, because maybe somebody who hears that story, they're like, oh, if you've got this great character that showed up in college, I'm sure then your life before that was pretty breezy. Everything was cool.
Right.
You had a supportive, a wonderful environment. Everything was peachy.
I wish.
Tell us a little bit about, I love this beautiful picture that you have on your Instagram post that you shared as well
Oh yeah.
last night with, at the event, the contrast of where things were and where they got to.
Mhm.
Walk us through like early childhood, man. What was a little bit of your story like?
Childhood was rough. I lived in Flint, Michigan for a little while. My mother and father weren't together. He went to the army. I mean, he went to the war,
Mm,
and was born in '73. And rough childhood. We moved a lot. Then we moved back to Louisville, Kentucky, where my mom's from. And her and my dad didn't get along. My dad was 6'9",
mm,
so he was a huge dude, but
mm,
he was just like he wasn't there mentally. He was always here. Those two didn't have a good
mm.
relationship. So 10 years old, I didn't see my dad for 20 years after I was 10.
Wow.
Barely saw him, but I saw him at 10. I didn't see him again until I was 30 something.
Mm,
My mother was on drinking, drugging. She was just really out there, man.
mm,
She was 22 when she had me, so she didn't get to finish college. She didn't do a lot of stuff, so she had her own demons to deal
mm.
with. And man, I came home one day and it was an empty apartment. I was almost 12. I was 11 and a half after turning 12.
What?
And I didn't see my mother for several years, man. I lived in a project housing, probably about 10 minutes away from Muhammad Ali, where he grew up at.
Mm,
But it was a project housing, Southwick. And man, I came home and couldn't believe it, man. I was
mm,
waiting on her to come home, but I went to Winn-Dixie, carry people's bags
mm,
for 5 or 10 cents. I was getting my own money. I was
mm,
eating bread and bologna sandwiches. Then the power went out.
mm,
I was staying over other people's houses, wearing other people's clothes. But the community back then would be like, okay, if he's a good kid,
mm,
we'll help him out.
mm.
So I was staying over friends' houses. The apartment building I was in was so bad that President Clinton came and tore him down. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
So they were like, "Well, yeah," but I had a place to stay for a little while. And in high school, I spending the night over in a gymnasium, Doss
Mm,
High School, and it was on the bench. We had practice on Saturday, so I didn't have a ride, didn't have means. So I would spend the night Friday night after practice. I would hide in the locker room, go do stuff,
oh,
act like I'm
man.
doing. I would stay upstairs on the stage, and they had a
Mm,
curtain. I would sleep behind the curtain. Wake up, they would be at practice. So the janitor called me spend the night the next Saturday, Friday. He said, "Son, you can't do this. You're gonna get me in trouble." So I said, "Man, I just got a couple more practices, then I won't do it." He said, "Well, you can stay at my house, and then I'll bring you here in the mornings for
wow.
practice." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, thank you, sir." And I was a freshman, and he did that, and his daughter was 17, stepdaughter, and I was 14, and she and I started dating.
Mm.
And that
But actually, hold on. Let me interrupt you one
yeah.
second.
Okay, okay.
Just because so much of this is like, I know there's going to be a movie coming out, and I
I'm
can't wait to
hoping.
see it.
I'm hoping, yeah.
But I don't want to miss the first scene of this movie,
Yeah.
because just the fact of you're 12 years old,
Yeah.
and you come home to an empty apartment.
Yeah.
For a lot of kids, and I know you show this in the movie,
Mhm.
like that choice, that direction, like, all
Mhm.
right, well, now I'm gonna go sell drugs.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go fend for myself in a way that I'm gonna go rob somebody.
Yep.
And not only did you not do that, but like you didn't lose hope in that moment. First of all, just like what was it like when you came home? You're like, yo, my mom's not here. Like, what?
I was used to her not being at home sometimes,
Mm,
so I was just like, "She'll be home," but I
mm,
didn't but to see the couch and the TV gone,
yeah,
and I had my clothes and a mattress in the other room, I'm just like, "That was weird." You know, as a kid, you still recognize it. You're smart enough to say, "Well, something ain't wrong." I'm thinking we got robbed, really.
right.
I was like, "Man, we got robbed. Mom's gonna be mad."
Yeah.
You know, but then when she didn't come home for the next couple of days, because she had done it before, where
Mm,
she didn't come home a weekend or whatever, but, this time she didn't come home.
mm,
And I didn't see my mom for a long time, and it was crazy that she didn't come home. So I knew she was on drugs and drinking.
mm,
I didn't know at the time your mentality was like, how do I get something to eat?
mm.
That's all I was thinking. Like,
That's what
okay,
you're
because
thinking.
I'm used to her not coming home
Mm,
because she worked at nightclubs and whatever. So I was like, okay, she's not gonna come home again. Let me go get some food. Let me do what I got to do. So after weeks went by and she wasn't home, I just realized, you know what, I got to fend for myself, and never
wow.
thought about drinking, drugging because I saw what the outcome did to my mom.
Right.
I said,
Right.
well, I know I'm not gonna drink and smoke weed. I know that's what she was doing. This messed her up.
Yeah.
Then I saw my neighborhood. I saw guys getting shot and beat up. And
Mm,
I'm like, well, I ain't built like
yeah. That's right.
that.
Not about to go.
I'm super skinny dude. I'm like, man, I gotta fight for my life, you know. So
Mm,
I had to realize that. And I was like, okay, what do I do? So I decided to work hard, man. I was shoveling snow. I was cutting grass. I learned to cut grass at 12, 13. So I'm working
wow.
odd jobs. I worked at a candy store across the street from my
Mm,
project housing, Mr. Whiteside Candy Truck. Again, I worked all kind of jobs, just
mm,
normal jobs that I was looking for around the community just to get money. I was going to a place called Roses. They had a shopping place where you get cheap clothes.
yeah.
They had like the $1.99 shirts, the underwear. So I was going to buy that with like change from my jobs.
Wow.
People give me $2, $3. So I go there and get some underwear. And I was washing in cold water in a tub and in the sink, just scraping. You know, I didn't have heat water. So I was washing in cold water and using trend detergent, scrubbing and all that stuff. So I learned how to actually take care of myself by necessity.
At
And those are
12 years
things
old,
at
you
12
were
years old.
just, this is now I'm gonna fend for myself. I'm
Mhm.
living a life of it. I mean, some people are when they go into college at like 18, 19, just trying to figure out how to do laundry for the first
They
time.
haven't been taught.
That's right.
I was taught.
Mm,
You know, when you have to self-teach yourself some things, but when you get taught at an early age, and
mm,
again, I would go to people and say, "Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am," and smile. "I
mm.
would love to cut your grass, sir."
Wow.
"Yeah," he said, "I'm busy." He said, "I got something." I said, "Okay, thank you, sir. Let me know next time if you need something." He said, "Young man, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just looking for some change, sir, just to get something to eat." And they would be like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yes, sir." That "yes, sir" got me more jobs than anything.
Wow.
That "yes, ma'am" got women to say, "Okay, well, let's help him out."
Mm,
And I would go to the candy store when I got my dated my girlfriend. The time she got pregnant, and 3 months
mm,
after my son Derek Jr. was born, I was 73. He was born in '88,
mm.
so I'm 15 as a dad.
Oof.
So she gets arrested for shoplifting. So I go back to my old apartment, and a lady next door gave me an extension cord for the refrigerator and lights, and we always using her stuff. But I had to pay her because she would keep my son while I would go to school, play basketball, work my jobs, work paper routes in the morning on Saturdays and Sundays, delivering papers. Guy on the truck, we would jump on and go do it. And it was just a job, man. I didn't know any better because
Mm,
I knew I had to survive. So from 12 till I was 17, I was actually working to take care of myself. And then I stayed with a high school coach
yeah.
who said, "You can come stay with me." Yes, with my junior year. And then my senior year, my Uncle George was like, "Okay, I'll help you out."
Mm,
He was up not too far from the neighborhood. But, you know, back then we didn't have cell phones.
right.
Nobody knew about it. CPS wasn't coming looking for you because you
Yeah.
was just projects. You know, so
Wow.
I use the same uh, what's that called? Physical. To
Uh,
get your physical, it's like I used that for like 4 years. I just
oh
kept
wow.
changing the date and sending it to coach. Coach is like, "Man, you 6'5", man. He said, "Man, we get a new," and I was like, "Yeah, I need
I know
to."
you hit puberty at some point.
Yeah, yeah,
But wait,
yeah.
let me also understand one more thing. So not only were you living like a full grown adult at 12,
Yeah,
but then at 15, you were a single dad,
yeah.
not only taking care of yourself, but taking care of your son, Derek
Brutal.
Jr. And again, for like, I'm only emphasizing this because when I hear your story, at every moment in your life, there are these crossroads where
Yeah.
so many people take a left
Yep.
and you made these different choices. So as a single dad with a baby and his mom is, behind bars,
Mhm.
what helped you? I know you were saying the community. What helped you say, you know what? No, I got to take care of my son and I got to stay committed and I got to stay on the right path to continue making those sort of good choices.
A lot of it was God giving me, like, support.
Mm.
You can tell there was something going on in my life
Mm.
that my testimony had to be a test somewhere. And
Mm.
I think that was a huge thing. And I didn't recognize it at the time, but it was like things were happening to me, but results was coming from support.
Mm.
So my mom leave, someone helps get me a job.
Mm.
You know, I have a baby, I'm single. The lady next door helps me get that. The neighborhood starts giving me more jobs. And it was
Mm.
like every time something bad happened, my attitude and good positivity reaped the benefit somewhere.
Mm.
I just had to focus on what was right. And seeing my mom and them go through what they did,
Mm.
it would be foolish of me to say, well, man, I'm gonna go sell drugs knowing what it did to my parents.
Right. Right.
And I was like, well, why would I do something I know doesn't work?
Right. Right.
Like that was to me was
Good
common
point.
sense. But again, there was a point of contention where people were actually helping me.
Mm.
And it was because of my attitude and also the environment.
Mm.
Because communities helped each other.
Yes.
And I think we've lost that sense of, you know, what are you doing, son? Let me help you out, direct you.
Mm.
You know, and when I was getting help, it was like I said, I had a good attitude, but it wasn't just a luck of draw.
Right. Right.
You know, how would that lady have enough means to have extension cord? Where'd
Mm.
she get extension cord?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like those were things that I was like, well, man, maybe this is gonna be all right.
Mm.
And my son was drinking whole milk like me.
Wow.
I didn't have formula milk, so I didn't even know. So I was
Milk
giving
from
him
school,
whole
really?
milk. Yeah, we had paper underwear drawers.
Yeah.
So he would mess those up and I'm washing those. So I didn't know about diapers. So
Wow.
I had a little struggle. I was in a tub one time and I was cleaning our clothes and he kind of walked in. He was like 1.5. And he walked in and grabbed my back and he yelled, Dada. And that was the first time I heard him say it. And I was like, I'm doing it with a bigger purpose. So little things like that started happening. I'm just like, I got to keep moving, man. And then my high school coach came, let me spend the night, stay with him for my junior year.
Mm.
She gets out of jail. I give her back to him. I'll give him back to her. And I stay with him, have a great career, get all these scholarship offers.
Mm.
My Uncle George keeps me my senior year. Me and her split custody of, so I get to see him on weekends. So and my life got better.
Mm.
You know, I stayed with high school. Then I went to college. And then I got to see him in the summers, but during the school years, college years, I was able to have freedom. I hadn't been free since I was 12
Wow.
to where I can go hang with my friends. I didn't have to work. I didn't have to do things that an adult was doing.
Yeah.
That's why I tell you about so much importance about having childhood. And it really mattered to me that college was that much fun. But yeah, to your point is a lot of people go left, man, when you're supposed to go right. And we all know the direction.
Mm.
But those are choices, man. And I think we've lost focus on glorifying so much of this negativity and saying, oh, man,
Yes.
everybody's not you. Everybody's not going to play basketball. I wasn't a star at 12.
Right.
I
Right.
wasn't a star at 15 when I made that bad decision of having a child, not knowing what I was doing.
Mm.
I wasn't a superstar. I was a normal kid trying to find his way out of the projects.
Mm.
And a lot of people think that it was just by me. And I was like, no, it was a community.
Mm.
My community helped me survive, man, to be the next person that can help the next Derek Anderson.
That's so powerful, man. And the fact of your character, your perspective, like your outlook the whole time.
Yeah.
And like, because at each moment, too, you could have also lost hope. Not only maybe the drugs route or the crime route or whatever, but then even not having the positive outlook or having bitterness. Can we talk about that for a second in terms of, because you strike me every time I talk to you, you're not someone who's held resentment, who's had
Nah.
bitterness. In those moments, both in your early teens as well as later, there's been a theme of forgiveness throughout your life.
Right.
What helped you be able to say, you know what, I'm not mad at this person or that person. I'm not mad at, just that theme a little bit. Can we unpack that a bit of how you were able to forgive people in your life?
Well, when you don't forgive, well, here's the thing. When you hold on to anger and energy and negative energy, what does that do to you? Drains you.
Mm-hmm.
Like when people are late for work, what do? They get stressed and they start sweating.
Yes.
They're angry. They're like, now they like everything about it. What I did was channeled everything that I did was towards work ethic. I said, well, man, I got to get, because I was not happy. Trust me, there was days I was pissed. I'd be like, come on, man, you got to be kidding. This happened to me? Like, what did I do to deserve this? I didn't ask for this life.
Yes.
So it's a reality that you think it is, what do you do with that thought? Everybody's going to think something negative at some point, but what do you do? So my thing was like, man, I got to get up. So as soon as I start thinking negative, I said, let me go get a job. Let me go this. So I'm thinking I got to play that game of I got to act like I'm happy so I can get my job. I would go work at the swimming pools. I was doing everything. They was like, man, he's a great kid. And I'd walk home and be dead tired. I'd be sleepy. I'd be starving. I was so thin. I was malnourished. The school was like, we got to give him two pizzas at school. Like I was thin.
Oh, man.
So, but I always had that work ethic. Saying, man, I can't sit here and just be crying about something. What am I going to do? What am I going to complain or am I going to compete? 6 days, 7 days of complaining or 7 days of competing. Which one you think is gonna get more out of?
Man, that's a good one. Complain or compete.
I mean, you got 2 choices. You can be bitter, you can be yelling, crying about what your parents didn't do,
Yes, yes.
crying about what the community don't do, crying about what police do, you can cry about everything.
Right.
But if you go
And we sure
compete
do.
yeah, but if you go compete, now that
Mm,
complaining gets suppressed
mm,
and you get more results out of competing. Even if I won one day,
mm.
I'd be like, "Ooh, Imma do this again." So that's what I did. I started going to all these stores and asking clean up. I was sweeping up liquor stores, and I'm like
Wow.
14, 13, 14. They're like, "Man, yeah." I said, "Can I clean up, wipe your windows?" I learned how to do windows. I was trying everything. But again, everything that I did was trying to survive,
Mm,
was basically working. That kept me from being negative. Because if I sat at home, I'm gonna be sulking. I'm gonna be
right.
sick. I'm gonna be crying. I'm gonna be pissed. Then I'm gonna get violent.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that a lot of people who are violent are always they're not born that way,
Yes.
and they become drained
Mm,
mentally and physically, and you become like, you know what? Now anything will snap.
mm,
Anything can snap a person, especially at a young age. But when you're frustrated, you do that. So my frustration had to be gone. When I would go shoot basketball
mm.
at night, I fell asleep out there a couple nights on a bench because it
Wow.
was a Friday night and it was in the summer. I'm just like, man, I'm just gonna stay out here, just chill. And I wake up, older guys out there playing. I'm like, man, I got the same clothes on. But again, it was what was I gonna do? Go in a neighborhood and sell drugs?
Mm.
I knew that dead end. I saw too many people go with it. So again, man, it's all about perspective. You're gonna be upset, but your perspective is, do I keep working
Yes.
and stay out here, or do I keep making bad decisions and I might be seen again?
I
You
love
got
that.
death or jail
Death or
was what
jail.
we death or jail is when you
Mm.
do wrong. It's a guarantee.
And it sounds like you were so focused on the fact of, like you're saying, I'm gonna do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And there's a certain level of humility to that too, of like, I'm not above any particular job.
No.
I'm willing to do anything. And in addition to that, like not holding on to that bitterness, because I'll tell you, as a psychiatrist, I see this a lot in people who
Mhm.
have a tough experience, especially from a loved one, right?
Yep.
From a mother, from a father. And not only did you, this was another thing that struck me about sort of your life, is not only did you forgive them and say, you know what, I'm not going to stay mad at my mom forever. I'm not going to stay mad at my dad forever. But you actually went and like sought them out at a different
Yeah.
time in your life. You went to look for them.
Yeah.
What was that like when you were looking for your dad, looking for your mom?
They didn't even call me. They
Wow.
didn't reach out to me. I had a company and everything. They
Mm.
never reached out to me. I'm in the NBA for years, and neither one of them reached out. And
Wow.
I'm like, this is crazy. It's like, and I know they're alive. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look for my dad.
Mm.
I went and found my dad. Man, he was 6'9". We looked identical. Where did we? I'm his child.
Wow.
Let's say that he couldn't
It
deny
was
that.
clear you are the
It was
father.
clear. Yes, yes. So I met him. We talked. I asked for, why didn't he come around? He's like, man, I was living foul and I was
Mm.
not good for you. And, I didn't want to ask for money. I just watched
Mm.
you from afar. I watched you play on TV. And I'm like, really? So he knew me. And I was like,
Mm.
man, that's crazy. So he
He was
couldn't get out of
ashamed.
he was ashamed of
Mm.
his own inner workings.
Mm.
So I forgave him. I told him, man, let's hang out. We took him to dinner, took him to
Mm.
meet his kid, my son. I had another son. He met him. And we just had a good time, man. We had a
Wow.
great time in less than a year after they died of cancer.
Oof.
So it was more or less, you know what, I got to fix my own lifestyle, man.
Mm.
Just I can't be bitter. Even though I felt fine,
Mm.
it was clearly I didn't have my parents. I was like, well, man, how can I help them out?
Mm.
Everybody's like, well, man, you didn't do this for me. And it's like, dude, like, how you gonna keep asking everybody to help you out? Like,
Right.
when players say I'm doing this for my parents, I'm like, what if your parents weren't here? What are you
Right.
doing it for?
Right.
You got to do this for yourself.
Yes.
Then you can help other people.
Yes.
When they say, "Oh man, my parents, I'm broken because of my parents." What if your
Mm.
parents aren't here?
Mm.
You can't stay broken. I
Mm.
get being hurt, but you can't stay hurt. You can't stay broken.
Oof.
And a lot of people use excuses of their bad decision making
Yes.
to justify their wrong thinking and wrongdoings. Now, there's a truth
Yes.
to having hurt from your
Yes.
parents or someone
Yes.
bothering you, but there's also a truth that you can't let them hold power over you.
That's so big.
And I think that's what I decided not to do. And then I met my mom. She's clean. I got her cleaned up as best I could at the time. Took her to rehabs.
Mm.
Got her a place to stay. Did all those things, and we had Christmas dinner for the first time in 27 years, man.
Oh man,
So it was powerful, man.
that
Very
is
powerful.
incredible. Because you're exactly right that we see this a lot, whether it's with players in the league or just the average person going through it. A lot of people go through hardship, but even
Yeah.
more so trauma,
Yep.
right? And you're sort of again showing this like fork in the road a little bit of like, well, you can choose to let this define you. You can choose
Hmm.
to let this sort of paralyze you in a
Yeah.
lot of ways,
Yeah.
or you can seek out. Like, not only did you Like, it's different, if your parents came to you, obviously, "Hey, we saw you on
Yeah,
TV,
yeah, yeah,
saw you get drafted,
yeah,
lottery pick,
yeah.
can we get a little,
Mhm.
but it wasn't that. You were the one to seek out that forgiveness. You were the
Yeah.
one to seek out for your own healing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, yep.
Do you see have when you were playing with guys, or because I see it a lot, in therapy,
Mhm.
but have you seen guys have a hard time with that? Say, you know what?
Yeah.
No, like my dad left when I was young,
Mhm.
and I'm never gonna forgive that. Or
Right.
guys who like struggled with being able to go on that healing journey, and like it festers a bit for them.
Yeah,
Have
yeah.
you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen it, and what's funny is I asked him, I said, most guys I talk to in the NBA, I said, "How does it feel when you've let somebody behind?"
Mm.
And they said, "Well, I don't have any kids." I said, "Have you ever had a friend that you were cool with, you're not cool with anymore?"
Mm.
He said, "Yeah, but there's a reason." I said, "You find out what your reason for your dad was."
Ooh.
See how everybody's got to point their fingers at everybody?
That's right.
They do it. They do it
Easy.
all the
Yeah,
time. They be
but
like,
just
"Well, man,
never.
my dad left me, I don't fool with him." Did you find out why?
Mm.
Because when you have a kid and then something happens with you where you're playing NBA, you don't get to see your kid that much,
Right.
especially if you're not with the mom.
Right.
Now, when your kid feels neglect by you and they don't ask for a reason from you,
Ooh.
what do you say? He said, "Well, man, that would be tough." I said, "Find out what your dad's was.
Mm.
Then you have a conversation. And if you don't like the conversation, move on."
Mm.
I'm not telling you be around someone who's not good or who's not healthy in their own mind. You try to help them. If not, move on.
Mm.
But you can't be judgmental about a dad that you don't know what happened.
Mm.
Because if I didn't ask my dad, I would have never known why he left. Him and my mother was arguing because
Right.
she was drinking and drugging.
Right. Right.
And I never knew that. I'm thinking he just left.
Because he's just a bad guy.
A bad
He
dude.
just
He's not a good. I
doesn't
didn't think
care.
the bad guy. I was thinking he was a bad father.
Mm.
I said, "Don't leave your son,"
Mm.
but he can't be around that.
Yes.
And she had control of me.
Mm.
And guys have to see that. And I said, "Now, what would you do if you can't get custody of a woman unless you fought and you play in NBA.
Mm.
So if you don't get it, you're gonna have to pay her child support. You're not gonna get custody of son."
Mm.
And she decides to move out somewhere else. You can't get to your son as much, and your son grows up bitter,
Mm.
just like you. What do you do?
Wow.
And then that's what they say. They say,
Yeah.
"Wow, I never thought of it that way." Because you're looking at holding on to anger, man. You're looking for
Yes.
every excuse. People hear you talk and be like, "I'm looking for everything to contradict or say something negative about you."
That's right.
You're not looking at the reality of it. Like, everybody's dad has done something wrong, even you.
Mm.
Everybody's mom has done something wrong, including yours. But if you find out why, maybe you can heal each other. But they're all trying to do it individually and nobody wins. It's a whole bunch of pointing the fingers.
Yes.
If you ever looked at the NBA draft and you see it, I like to thank my mom.
Right. Right.
Dad's right there.
Ain't nobody thanking dad.
But that's our job, is to be
Yeah.
supportive no matter what. And then we have to find out, how do we handle ourselves.
Mm.
So if you don't have a guy that can talk to someone like yourself or
Right.
me, it's tough on men. It's tough, regardless of the money. It's
Yes.
tough on men, and we have to look at each other as brothers and
Yes.
figure out, "Hey, man, I need to talk to you about something, man. I'm going through something with my son." So what I'm doing now when I speak to the young man is, I'm your brother, I'm your friend,
Mm.
I'm your new relative that can help you walk you through it. There's no perfect scenario to this. There's no
Yes.
blueprint to parenting.
Yes.
But there is a blueprint to how you heal yourself, and it's whichever one you create. Everybody's house can be different. It's your blueprint.
Mm.
You got to create one. These kids want to create one. They want to just live in everybody else's blueprint. My dad wasn't there. My mom this
That's right.
and this and that. And then when women say I'm a single mother, it's like that's not an award.
Yeah.
We have to be together. We have to help single mothers be better. Then you can get a relationship with him. She can get help. She can help her son realize, I need a man to come in and help me. Because that's both of a man and a woman are helpmates.
That's
And
right.
we need to focus on someone helping these young men. And it starts with the women and men trying to step up, and the young guys accepting, hey, I need a little bit of energy and help, and I need a little bit of conversation to figure it out. Stop blaming everything and
Yes.
start changing things.
That's so true. And it's like sometimes we get used to a certain narrative because we see it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a survival mindset, like you're saying.
Yep.
Like, all right, if I'm a single mom, that's just the way I got to deal. That's what
Yeah.
that's it is what it is.
Yeah.
Or if I'm a dude and my dad wasn't around, I
Mhm.
get used to accepting that,
Yep.
and I reinforce the same thing. I reinforce like,
Yes.
yeah, he's a bad father,
Yep.
and just kind of putting. But your
Mhm.
framing is so helpful because it makes somebody curious, right? And it
Mhm.
makes somebody human. We were talking about this a little bit yesterday too. Of one of the hard things for men is there's this expectation to just have it all together all the time.
Yeah.
Whether as a
Superman.
dad, Superman, right? You can't mess up as a dad,
Nope.
as a big brother, as a player. What was that like when you were seeing it around other guys and even for yourself? Like there's this expectation that everything's got to be good all the time. You gotta have it together. You gotta perform. You can't be can't show a weakness because you're
Yeah,
Superman.
yeah.
How did you navigate that for yourself and for other guys?
Well, I knew I was fine because if I can survive on my own at 12,
Mm,
nobody else could break me.
mm,
Nobody else could change me.
mm,
I was like, man, you can't make me drink, smoke, none of that. I'm not doing none of that.
right,
I
right,
ain't gambling, no. So when they say, Derek, you want to do this? I'm like, no. And
mm,
don't ask me again.
right. Shut
You know what I
that
mean?
down.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've shut it all the way down. So no,
Mm,
I'm different. I'm not doing what you do to
mm,
fit your narrative. This is my life.
mm,
So I've always said, if I can focus on teaching guys to be who they are
mm,
authentically, like you don't have to talk crazy, you don't have to be rude. You just be like, no, I'm good, man. Thank you.
mm,
They ask you again, say, bro, I'm good. Like I'm good. Like,
mm,
and that's the end of it. You don't need explanations.
mm.
You don't need to tell everybody like, oh man, my mom was on drugs, so I don't drink.
Right, right.
I don't need to give you an
It's not
explanation.
for you.
I don't
Yeah,
want to do it.
yeah.
And we're in, like,
That's
I'm
it.
an adult, 18 and up, you're an adult. Like,
Mm,
you make those decisions.
mm,
And guys say, man, what about peer pressure? There's no such thing as peer pressure
mm.
when you shut it down. Because if I'm not drunk, can I get a DUI?
Nope.
Impossible. If I
Impossible.
don't hang with you,
That's right.
I'm not in trouble.
That's right.
It's like so simple. It's like, dude, you can't get me to crash out over that stuff. And it was like, just talking to those guys, man, it was like, yeah, you got to understand your purpose is yours, man.
Mm,
I said, you ever wonder why you're this way? So when I talked to my teammates and other players in the NBA, they was all looking for reasons to do something with your money.
mm,
Man, I'm doing this. I'm doing this. D, you got to try this, bro. You're on a no-win situation.
mm.
Drinking and driving is always a no-win situation.
That's right.
Smoking and driving, just doing things that are in a no-win situation. Now, I'm not telling people they can't do those things, but do them in a way that you protect yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
You protect your family. And a lot of those guys when I was playing, man, did not think like that.
Mm,
They thought they were invincible. And then when they weren't and they had to retire, reality set in.
sets in
And that's
real.
why depression is so high in retired athletes because they were
Mm.
being admired for so long. Now all of a sudden you're not. Now all of a sudden reality is you walk up this street, don't nobody even know you.
Wow. Yeah. And there's
Don't say nothing to
no
you.
pictures, no selfies,
No
nothing.
pictures, none of that. They be like, oh, he's tall.
Just a yeah. Another tall guy.
Another
on the
tall guy
street.
walking. So the reality is, man, if you can find your own inner peace,
Mm,
we got to find that for some guys. Some guys do not have it. They don't know where to get it.
mm.
It ain't like you can find, hey, where do I get inner peace?
Yeah.
And
How
then
much?
Google it.
What's the check?
Yeah,
You
you
gotta
can't Google
just-
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be like, yeah, let me find inner peace and see if I can
ChatGPT,
get
inner
it.
peace.
Nah. So to me, it's always giving the guys a taste of reality, man.
Mm,
That sugarcoating it ain't it.
that's not it.
Nah, that old talking about, oh yeah, I done told this, and that ain't it. You got to show guys this.
And I know you were saying a part of that inner peace journey for you was faith. You mentioned
Yes.
there were a couple of very specific signs that you sort of
Mhm.
saw. What was the faith journey for you that you were like, oh, maybe God is like speaking to me, and that helped kind of me develop my inner peace?
Yeah, because I didn't go to church. I didn't have parents, so I wasn't
Yeah.
in church. I was just working, doing what I had to do. So I get to college and someone said something about, I tore my ACL and guy was wheeling me, older black gentleman. He said, man, you have a good spirit, a good disposition about you.
Mm,
He said, man, God's got a covering over you. I'm like, oh, thank you, man. I'm thinking like, that was cool.
yeah.
I get in the car going back to my dorm and there's a billboard of me up. And then there's a cross next to it, said something really positive. I remember the cross. I don't remember the positive word, but it said a cross. And I'm like, ain't that God? Ain't that like
Wow.
something? So I went to my dorm room and I started thinking about it. And then I just started, I was curious. I'm like, oh man, if that is a thing. I didn't know God and Jesus. I didn't know any of that.
Right.
So I'm just like, God, I hope you help me, this and that. I'm saying God, but I had no idea.
Whoever that is.
Religion.
Yeah.
I had no religion at all at that time. And I started seeing signs, and I'm like, well, man, maybe this is it. Maybe
Mm.
something there. So I went to a fellowship. Somebody offered me to go to a fellow Christian athlete
Mm,
event. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, man, it's just where we talk about fellowship, brotherhood, because I wasn't joining the fraternity. I
Right.
don't have nothing against them, but I was just like,
it's not
man,
your thing.
I just wasn't, I always thought they were like a gang. And I was like, I was taught not to do a gang.
Yeah,
I didn't
no
know
gang
that they were a
activity.
good support system at the
They
time.
got Greek letters. and
Yeah,
stuff.
so I was like, man, I can't join that gang. And it was funny. The guy's like, it's not a gang. I'm like, well, I don't know. Come to find out they weren't, but
They got colors. I mean, if they're a
yeah.
gang-
So I went to the fellowship
Mm.
Christian athletes meeting. And I was like, man, this is cool. Like people
Mm.
people was like, man, tell your brother next to you, you love him, man, and y'all appreciate him. You're here if you need to talk.
Mm,
And I'm like, dang, these people are really cool. And it was whites, blacks,
mm,
Asians, Latino. It was everybody in there.
just-
So I'm just like, this is a melting pot. I said,
mm.
this is cool. So people can actually be cool. Because I grew up where most white people didn't like blacks. So we didn't see Latinos and Asians at all in my community.
Wow.
So I had none in my school, none in my middle school. So I was like, this is like culture.
Right.
And I just kept going and kept researching. I was like, well, man, this is good. And And once I realized, well, man, God does have a plan. Like he
Mm,
brought me a long way. Like he got me out of all them bad situations. And,
mm,
I'm starting thinking the positive now. I'm not thinking
yeah,
like, like it's all bad. I'm like, man, God brought me along. I got my
mm,
own dorm. I got a car now. I got my own clothes. I don't have to work jobs. I got a name. Like I'm doing well.
mm.
I said, man, this wasn't chance. God actually had a covering. And then somebody told me that famous quote. He said, man, you can't have a testimony without a test.
Let's go.
So I was like, good. Now I know my purpose.
Now you see it.
Yep.
And it sounds like, I mean, understanding the testimony and the test there and understanding that the role of faith helped kind of give you this push forward, not just to be able to continue like in your own journey,
Yeah.
but then even I know you talk about helping the next Derek Anderson,
Yeah.
right? The person who was in those crossroads. One of the things I love that you mentioned too with that in terms of the carrying the torch kind of forward
Yeah.
is even what you did with your first MBA check.
Yeah.
What'd you do
Yeah.
with it? Did you buy nice rolls?
Nope.
Buy a
I didn't
couple
buy
of
no jewelry.
couple
Zero jewelry.
mm,
$127,000 after they took all the taxes.
mad taxes
Mad tax. It was crazy. I got 250,000 check, but it was I put 25,000 into the foundation, my Derek Anderson
with your
Foundation.
first check.
My first check.
Mama.
And he was like, "No, don't do that, man." I was like, "Well, man, I want to give a foundation
Mm,
because I want to help, some of the guys I know going through. Because my community, it was a lot of guys that could have made it in basketball,
mm,
but they didn't have the means, they didn't
mm,
have the know-how, they didn't have the attitude, they didn't have the infrastructure to work harder.
mm.
So when you get out of high school, if I didn't get a scholarship, guess what? You couldn't pay for college. You didn't know
That's
how
it.
to do that. Your mom couldn't apply. She wasn't aware of it. Wasn't no
Mm.
Google back in '92.
Right.
It wasn't like that. So we were
Yeah.
all like, man, how do I get in college? And you don't know
Mm,
from our project housing. So it was tough, but a lot of guys found a way out. But there was a means for me saying, man, I got to help the next person who's going
mm,
through this. Because I wasn't the only one who was poor, man. I
mm.
wasn't the only one whose parents was on drugs in the 80s.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of them. It's just everybody didn't follow the dream or passion like
Right.
that. Everybody didn't turn out to be 6'6".
That's right.
Everybody didn't turn out to have the athletics and all that stuff. So it's like, man, what do I do? So I opened my foundation, my first check, put
Wow.
25,000 into it. Yep.
What's the name of the foundation?
It was Derek Anderson, but I changed it to Stamina Foundation. Now
Okay.
I wanted to leave more than my name, so I didn't want my name just sitting out there all day. So
My
I said,
man.
what can I leave, besides my name?
Mm,
I said, so let me start my Stamina Foundation. So don't run out of breath before you win is kind of what I believe in.
oh,
Don't run out
man.
of breath and it's stamina. If you keep pushing, man, you
Mm,
will win. It's hard to beat somebody never quit.
man. Yeah, not complaining and competing.
Mhm.
And from what you were telling me about the work at the foundation, it's pretty incredible, like
Mhm.
meeting kids who are just like you're saying,
Yeah.
maybe parents are not there and they're in that situation where they could be like you, they're sleeping on the gym
Mhm.
bench and talk about kind of the work that you do there because it's incredible, like life-saving work. If I'm a
Yeah.
16-year-old and I got
Yep.
nowhere to stay,
Yep.
tell me more about that.
Well, to me, it's your character, man. If your attitude is good, people will help you.
Mm,
If a guy's gonna hire you and it's me and you have the same education
yeah.
and we walk in a meeting after each other and I say, "How you doing, sir?"
Mm,
You just, "Hey, how's your day?" And he'd be like, "Oh, that was nice." And then you come and you say, "Yeah, here's my resume."
mm,
He's gonna hire me because he likes me. He said, "Man,
that's
that
right.
kid was nice. They got the same degree, but
Yeah.
that kid was really nice." The
Yes.
other kid just came in ready to work.
Mm,
The other guy was like, he was nice. I trust him because he's nicer.
mm-hmm. Mm,
Think about that. I got
yeah.
hired because I'm nicer,
That's right.
not because I'm smarter, not because
Mhm.
I'm better. And you might have all the better attributes, work
Right.
harder,
Right.
stay longer, know more, but because he liked me,
Mm,
my character, my attitude, that's what it is. So my foundation is teaching life skills,
mm,
but people skills and manners,
mm,
common courtesy, common decency. Somebody speaks to you, speak.
mm.
You don't just shove them off and be like, "Oh, what's up?"
Right.
Because I won't remember you. If I remember
Right.
you, it'd be a negative memory. I'd be
Yes.
like, man, I don't want that dude. Because what happens is, which we all know,
Yes.
you're 1 degree of someone giving you an opportunity.
That's right. That's
And
so
that
true.
one person be like, I remember him. And then the other one be like, I don't remember because he had a bad attitude, he had a disposition. I don't
Yes.
remember it. But people that speak to you and are kind and nice, you remember those people. So those are opportunities that I've always said I wanted to give the next generation.
Mm.
Because schools don't teach this.
No. These are soft
Businesses don't
skills.
teach us.
Yeah.
They saw skills. And now you got AI coming. And now it's really about the skill level.
Yes.
So if you don't have a bonus, which is your attitude and your work ethic and your character, you're really going to be behind. So keeping that in mind is knowing that people will hire most people that they like.
And the fact that sometimes it's hard to have that mindset, like especially with the kids that you're investing in,
Mhm.
because it's not like they've got everything going and
Yeah.
everything's amazing, but they just lack a little bit of discipline or character and you're going to put it on top.
Yep.
It's like you were telling me yesterday about some of these kids are literally, you're helping them get like a little tent
Yeah,
because they're staying
yep,
somewhere
bed
and
tents, yep.
big tent so they can have some privacy,
Mhm,
when they're staying over in a facility you've got.
mhm.
And you were sharing, I loved actually the way that you were illustrating this last night. We were at a wonderful event, a gala for a school. Shout out to Vineyard School,
Yes,
Sam and Monica who have that school and were doing wonderful work.
amazing school.
And you were demonstrating sort of to the crowd of
Yeah,
like, here's why character is different, and
yeah.
here's so. Can you speak a little bit to when you're bringing that message, both to an area that is underserved or underdeveloped, or
Mhm.
somebody's struggling, or somebody's got it all.
Yeah.
Somebody's born with a silver spoon in their mouth and they're
Mhm,
affluent, and how you can sort of still emphasize at the end of the day, character is what
mhm.
matters.
Yeah, cause even if you're a rich person and you had it all, and then you're rude or not nice to
Mm,
someone else, that same person come and rob and take everything.
mm,
They can kill you.
mm-hmm,
And that's the culture the world that we live in.
mm-hmm,
They don't see it that way, and I'm saying, if you just spoke to someone, that person could be like, "This was about to happen."
mm,
Greatest story I ever heard was a kid was being bullied in high school, and friends were messing with him, and a football player was walking out, and the football player was a big guy, and he's like, "Man, come on, man, where you going?" He's like, "Man, I live such and such." He said, "Really? That's where I live at. Come on, I'll take you home." So they walked home, and 10 years later, they're both he didn't make it to NFL. He tore his knee up, so he's working class guy.
mm.
And the kid that was being bullied is a doctor. He makes millions of dollars. He's wealthy. So
Wow.
he has his wedding. He brings the guy in. And he says, "Hey man, I just want to thank my best friend." Friends like, "Ah, whatever." He said, "No, the day you helped walk me home is the day I was going to kill myself."
Oh my goodness.
So no matter how famous you are, how much
Mm,
money you have, man, you can save a life
mm,
just by doing a kind gesture. He walked him home, and the kid said, "That day I was going to kill myself. I had a note and I had a gun and was going to kill myself. But because you walked me home, you were a good person. I felt like there's still good people in the world, and I changed my life." 10 years later, the story's different. And that's what these rich kids don't understand.
right.
You can help a kid, man. You don't have to be financial. It's just a good
Yes.
word. You got a car, drop a kid off if you're in school.
Yes.
Do something nice. And then the underprivileged kids is the same way. If you like, I'm one removed, I know billionaires.
Mm,
So if a kid sees me, he's like, "Well, man, I'm really struggling. Can I talk to you?" As opposed to him being rude.
mm,
And now that I can't change his life, I
mm,
could literally get him a job like that,
mm,
change his life.
mm.
So inner kid, he says, like, you got to look at your attitude, not your money, not your this. Now, I don't have Jordans on, but don't look at your attitude.
Yes.
Know that there's a better outcome. Would you rather live 2 or 3 years in poverty, say 8 years in poverty,
Mm,
or live 50 years in happiness?
mm.
I said, there's a trade-off in everything.
Yes.
No one side, like my sixth grade year, I barely played. Seventh and eighth grade, I started. My ninth grade year, barely played, average 4 points. My rest of my career, I balled. Freshman year, I barely, I didn't start until later in the year. My rest of my career, averaged 20 All-American. My rookie year, I barely got in at the beginning. Then I started. Then I finished an 11-year career, winning a championship.
Wow.
I always started at the bottom,
Mm.
but I worked.
It worked out.
So that's your life story. It's like every last one of you inner city kids, stop making excuses for where we're growing up at.
Mm.
You're not the only one in this situation. The system has failed us. We know that.
Yes.
But what do? You don't succumb to it. You challenge it.
Mm.
You fight for it. You get better at it. You figure ways around it. And that's what I tell the young kids, but it's all about your character, man.
Mm.
Your attitude and your character is what survives all of us. And some of the people who still struggling today, it's based on their attitude.
Mm.
You can look at some of the guys now and look at them and they have that mean face
Yeah.
or that tough look, got them nowhere. And some people who do get a little further, they get to a point and they're stuck. They be like, "Man, how come I can't get out of this situation? Don't nobody like you." It's like
straight up.
it's straight up. It's like
nobody like
people
me.
just don't like you. And it's not that you don't have the skills, it's
Yeah.
people don't like you. And
Yeah.
you missing the point that you need both to succeed at a different level.
Yeah.
Now, some people are fortunate enough to be born into money.
Yeah.
And they get privilege and they get that. That's a small percentage. We all know that. It's a small percentage of rich people.
Right.
So
right.
clearly that's not the end
Not
all to
gonna work
be
for
all.
everybody.
But the 90 to the 80% of people who are below and don't have all those means,
Mm.
you have to figure out a better way of getting it. Even if it's a little bit of increase,
Yeah.
your goal is to live a good life now and do the things you can enjoy now and enjoy every day. And then you know that there's an end goal to it coming. And it's just basically getting better at what you have, man.
I love
Very
that,
simple
man.
story.
I love that. And it's, both when you're talking about stamina as well as A-OK,
Yeah.
the work that you do there, it's like, I know as somebody in the mental health and the wellness space and all this stuff,
Mhm.
sometimes we talk about things that sound fancy and
Right,
therapy,
right.
this and this. But you really, I think, remind us that like kindness is life saving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
don't all have to be, we don't have to have the same story. We don't
No.
have to have the same credentials.
Everybody's got a story though.
Everybody's got, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Our individual story, our individual background, just the way we show up for somebody
Yep.
in a sincere, kind way can actually save their life,
Yeah.
which is incredible. And
Yeah. People just walk around with an attitude and they think, because you got attitude, you like if you mean, then
mm,
I'm supposed to just be mean because everybody in the neighborhood is mean. I'm not
mm,
gonna do that.
mm,
All these people walking around here with attitudes and getting where? Nowhere.
mm.
I'm not getting that worries on you too. Your attitude of looking around frowning. I'm like smiling and how y'all doing? They be like, oh, that was nice. And they change. You ever smile to look at somebody and just smile, do like this? They immediately smile
They
back.
smile back.
You be like, what you smiling at?
Even
I
in
don't
New
know.
York
You're
City,
doing it.
happens too.
Yeah.
And we mean out here, but
Yeah. But it's just because that's the norm.
mm,
And what is the norm telling you? What's the world going to? It's a dark cloud.
dark.
Dark cloud because everybody thinks the norm is this.
Mm,
Social media, the news, media is pushing out negativity.
mhm.
Remember back in the day, if you had a good story, people were like, man, look at this nice story. And people could
Yeah.
support you. 99% of the news right now is negative.
Yeah, we don't
If
want
I
that
if
good
I
story.
if I threw you out this window, I'll be on the news for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
If I saved you, I would be on there for 20 minutes a
Like,
day.
"Ah, that's cool.
That was good. Good job, Derek. Now on to the news of all the shooting up the street. You're
The
like,
terrible
damn.
things. It's like,
what
remember
the-
actually that sitcom in the 90s, Family Matters? They
Yes,
used to open
yes.
with, it's a rare condition in this day and age to
Yeah.
read any good news on the
Any
newspaper
good news.
page.
So if you don't create your good news and your
Mm.
good happiness, where you think you're gonna get it from?
Mm,
So that's what I tell all these kids and these young people in our foundation is
mm,
our act of kindness is every day. It's not something, it's not random. People just say, do a random kind of actness.
mm.
Ours is everyday kind of
My
actness.
man.
So if you practice it, if you open the door every day, it'd be normal to you.
It's a lifestyle.
Lifestyle. If you want a lifestyle to change who you are, man, you got to change your mindset. Be nice to people and things will be better. And this is for you.
Mm,
You can help other people, but this is for you. This is your inner peace that you find is saying, you know what? Whatever negativity. So when people cut me off, man, whatever. I don't even look at people when they cut me off. I just keep going. So I don't get mad because they might give you the finger.
That's
and
right.
now you ready to pull over and y'all ready to, everybody's just acting crazy. So now I just ignore them.
And that's part of, like, to your point, that's the inner healing
Inner
for
healing,
ourselves.
man.
It's not about the other person.
Nope.
And when I know people are gonna wanna. I personally can't get enough time with you. Like, I want to
Thank
just
you, bro.
like soak up. I have like Derek Anderson quotes. You know what I mean? I got all types,
That's
that I'm learning. We mentioned that the movie's going to be coming out. People will hopefully like look for that when that
Yeah.
comes.
Yeah.
I know there's the book.
Yep.
And tell us and there might have been. I know you sent me the little. There's a somebody who endorsed it. I think someone by the name of Michael.
Oh yeah, Michael Jordan endorsed my book. Yeah. Pretty
What's
cool.
the name of the book?
Stamina.
Stamina.
Yep.
All right, so people can check that out.
Yep.
And people can be able to follow you on social.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well-
I've not said one cuss word in any of my social posts, and I've been on here for 14 years.
Just wholesome
12
good stuff, man.
Well, it's just your habits. Not to say I don't cuss, but there's a platform.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you want people to know that, there's still good people out here willing to
Mhm.
root and cheer for the young generation, even the older generation.
Mm.
They've paved the way for me to have shade. It's
Yeah.
time for me to do the same. So people before me, I love and respect. People my age and people below me, I love and respect. Good people. We need more of that, and everything is A-okay.
Hey, okay. Well, DA, I just gotta tell you, we need more people like you, man. And I'm so grateful for the time that we had today,
Yeah.
and for your support, not just of like beautiful community events like we were at last night with the Vineyard Schools and that gala, like investing in Christian education and great education that they were doing last night. Your work with athletes,
Mhm.
for us at Athletes for Hope, seeing somebody like you who's like a mentor, a friend, a big brother to folks who are in the league, coming out of the league.
Yeah.
I just can't thank you enough for the time that we spent today, man. And I just,
Thank you, man. Leave more than your name, and always remember, do all you can while you can, and let God do the rest.
My man, Derek Anderson. Thank you so much, man.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
for tuning in this episode. Please check out Derek's book. Follow him on social. I'm inspired every time I talk to him in any way. And we're so happy to be able to shine a light on his individual story and the work that he's been doing all these years, at Athletes for Hope. So I'm grateful for you tuning in, and thank you again, DA. Appreciate
Yes,
you,
sir.
man.
Absolutely, brother.
Appreciate you.
My man.